There wasn't an official document. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Supplementary question.
Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell the House how the 93,000 families who have had the funding by government to early childhood education cut, who will be paying $20 to $30 a week extra for their children, how will they be better off when over half of them haven't had a wage increase over the last year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, a couple of things. Fortunately, they've had tax cuts and will have further tax cuts on October 1. Fortunately, they've enjoyed an average wage growth of 8.7%. And, Mr Speaker, if I could just give you one reassurance, if there does have to be an early shower this afternoon, it'll be cheaper under National than Labor because electricity prices have gone up by half. That's right.
Point of order, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, I seek the leave of the House to table a document from the Living and Learning Foundation, whose early childhood centre in Mangere the Prime Minister opened last year, which says that they'll have to raise their fees to low-income families by a minimum of $20 to $25 per child per week.
Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Supplementary question,
the Honourable
Mr.
Leader
Speaker.
of the Opposition. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor.
I apologise, member. The Prime Minister indicated, as the last part of his last question, that power prices have gone up, but showers are cheaper. My request is the table document shows that.
The member is abusing the point of order process, and I won't tolerate it any further. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. If the Prime Minister is intent...
Point of order.
Look, I'm more than happy to table this bit of my notes, which shows quite clearly electricity prices have gone up on average 2.9% under National and 5.4% under Labor.
Order. Now, I invite the Honourable Trevor Mallard to reflect on how that interjection was within standing orders. A point of order was had been called, and was being considered. And to interject loudly like that, he knows is totally out of order. And I'm not going to actually evict him from the House because I suspect he probably wants to be relieved of his duties this afternoon. I'm not going to do that. I'll make the honourable member stay here and suffer, and I'll be very hard on him. And I warn the honourable member I will be tough on him. I don't think a member's scrawled notes constitute an official document. We won't be doing that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. If the Prime Minister wants to close the wage gap and living standards gap with Australia, why has he made consumption taxes in New Zealand more than 50% higher in this country than Australians pay in theirs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, firstly, the government is closing the wage gap with Australia. I'm pleased to report that it's fallen from a peak of 38% under Labor to 29% under National. Not bad, actually. Not bad, given we've had 21 months. And, Mr. Speaker, secondly, we have a different series of taxes here. Australia has a capital gains tax. Largely, New Zealand does not. New Zealand has much lower personal tax rates, which is actually why someone in New Zealand who used to earn under $229,000 in personal income used to pay more tax in New Zealand than Australia. After October 1, it'll be $55,000, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker. Why did the Prime Minister tell the country that New Zealand had one of the lowest consumption taxes in the world when, on the basis of OECD statistics of consumption taxes, OECD statistics, based on the consumption tax as a percentage of GDP, under his 15% GST, will now be the fourth highest in the world out of the 30 countries?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, I'd have to see the quote in totality, but all I can say is the right mix of taxes has been implemented by the government. We will have a very effective balance between personal taxes and GST. But hey, if the member doesn't like the idea of it, he can campaign on changing it, and I'll bet he won't.
Order, Mr. Speaker.
Order, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Maybe you could help me, Mr Speaker, in telling me how in any way that answer addressed the question that I asked. Why did he tell the country that we had one of the lowest rates of consumption taxes in the world when patently that is untrue?
Order. The Leader of the Opposition must reflect on the questions he's asking. He asked the Prime Minister, why did he tell the country something? Now, I know that the member's probably got an answer he expects when he asks the question, but the kind of answer when you ask a question, when a member asks a minister, why did he do something, why did he tell the country something, there's any range of answers. And the Prime Minister, if I recollect his answer, said he would want to see the quote in totality before he could comment further on it. But then he explained why he had a certain view around GST. And I don't think that's an unreasonable answer. I keep stressing the point, opinions are perfectly within standing orders to seek opinions. But as Speaker, it's extraordinarily difficult for me to insist on a particular answer when an opinion is sought, because there's no right answer when an opinion is sought. And that's the dilemma I face. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaking to point of order, Mr Speaker, this is a House that is entrusted with the task of holding ministers accountable for what they say. If a minister says we have one of the lowest consumption taxes in the world, and when the evidence can be tabled to show that that is untrue, why is it that a minister will not be held accountable to answer that question?
That's not an opinion.
It's not an opinion.
Order. I can imagine all sorts of questions that could be asked in a range of questions to test the accuracy of the Prime Minister's statement, asking him point blank what certain GST rates are, and then actually compare that with because the whole idea of supplementary questions is not to make a range of political statements about an issue, but to dig into an issue to test a minister's answer. And I could think of a whole range of questions that could be asked to test the Prime Minister on that issue, where they weren't seeking opinion, they're actually challenging him on facts. And not asking him why he was saying something, because the dilemma is as soon as one asks why or how, that's an opinion that it's so difficult for me as Speaker to insist on any particular answer. And I realise, though, members often want to make a political statement in asking a question. That's perfectly legitimate. But it's very difficult then for me to insist on any particular answer, because the political statement the member was making with that, because I can see he's wondering why I'm saying it, is the political statement is he's saying the Prime Minister wasn't basically telling the truth over something in a very, subtle sort of a way. And that's not the way to actually test out some of the facts through supplementary questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, does New Zealand at 15% have one of the lowest rates of consumption taxes in one of the lowest rates, as he alleged, of consumption taxes in the world as a percentage of GDP? If so, where does it range in the list of 30 OECD countries?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I need to go and check at 15%, because I simply don't have that to hand. But in the bulk of Europe, it's higher than 15%. What the government does know is we have the right mix of taxes.
Question number 3.